What's up, athletes? This is Travis, ready to dive into another training talk, which hopefully will help you as much as the others. Today I want to talk about this idea of kind of rest in your intervals, because I think people don't really understand what the role of rest is when you're doing anaerobic intervals in general. I know when I first started coaching, I remember looking at the interval sessions I was doing, and I was a very mathematically mindset kind of person. And I remember looking at, we were doing 5-minute intervals or 4-minute intervals and just staring at it and just trying to kind of think in my head, you know, is a 6-minute rest time or a 7-minute rest time or a 5-minute rest time? What is like the right rest time? All right, because I was certain that there was a correct answer and there was an incorrect answer, and doing X amount of rest for this number of interval lengths and this number of reps on interval would produce a better benefit than the Y amount of rest. All right, and what I came to learn over time, and thanks to kind of, you know, insightful coaches out there, guys like Arthur Lydiard, you know, kind of explaining this, and through my own experience, I came to recognize the fact that the goal of rest and training is to ensure your ability to complete the prescribed work. All right, and so there's a kind of tendency, especially in rowing. I don't think running and other sports are quite as kind of backward in their thinking as rowing is, thanks to the fact that they just have tons more money to throw into research and development when it comes to training methodology. But you'll see a lot of kind of people in rowing, certainly coaches in rowing, and they will use an abbreviated rest interval to increase the difficulty level of a workout. And I think this is a grave error, all right? And it's really compromising the adaptation of the athletes and the ultimate benefit of those training sessions for those athletes that are completing them. And the reason for this is that when you're doing work, especially anaerobic work, your body is adapting to the work that you're doing. Your body is not adapting because it is hard, all right? And this is another error that a lot of kind of people who are inexperienced athletes or even experienced athletes will kind of buy into, this idea that just because something is hard means that's an effective workout, all right? And what I say to that is any moron can create a hard workout, all right? Hard is just a matter of doing more than what your capacity is. And so any coach with the ability or the lack of discretion to assign an athlete something that is greater than their threshold or capacity is going to be giving them a hard workout. And if people associate hard, all right, with good, all right, then those people are fools, all right? And so don't be a fool, all right? And so we're gonna talk about how not to be a fool today. And I was a fool for a long time, all right? Don't take this as derogatory. I'm saying let's use this video to kind of talk through and reason through and learn how to make smart decisions with your training structure and development, and with the execution of that training, and even with your selection of coaches or instructors or who you can trust to give you an effective training program. All right, so let's take that step back into this comment that I said that the training benefit that you're going to get is derived from the work, all right? And this is even more evident in something like strength training, all right? So in strength training, if you're doing heavy lifting, say you're doing, you know, sets of 5, you know, a good old Ripito method right there, and you're doing sets of 5 reps, and your goal is to do 3 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 5, all right? So doing 2 sets of 5 and then failing to achieve the 5th rep on your last set because you were only taking 2 or 3 minutes of break in between your sets, and that's an extreme. If you could even do, you know, 3 to 5, taking 2 or 3 minutes, that's impressive. But the point being, like when you're doing lifts at that level, then your rest period is whatever it needs to be for you to be able to go back and do that lift, all right? Your strength adaptation comes from how many tons, how many pounds of weight that you're lifting in a session or within a day or so. With rowing, it's a similar benefit, all right? And so you're going to benefit from accumulating an amount of volume at a transport intensity or an anaerobic threshold intensity or a lactate threshold intensity, all right? Compromising your ability to accumulate volume by decreasing your rest is simply going to decrease the amount of training stimulus you're able to introduce to your body. And then you could come back and say, well, what if I just, instead of taking 3 minutes of rest, I just take 10 or 12 minutes of rest in between it, so I'm essentially fully recovered and I go. And what I would say to that is what you'll find is that there's a point of diminishing returns, all right? And this will play into how you determine how much rest you should take, all right? So there's a point where taking an extra 30 seconds or a minute of rest is not going to produce a substantial or even any benefit at all to your performance on that interval. And that's ultimately how you're going to determine how much rest you should be taking between intervals and when it's appropriate to decrease the amount of rest that you're taking between those intervals, all right? So I talk a lot on this channel about 3-minute pieces. 3-minute pieces are kind of a favorite of mine for doing transport workout because they're extremely straightforward. They're extremely easy to teach pacing, and it's very flexible to assign to a group of athletes, because if I say 3-minute pieces and I use anywhere from 4-minute rest to 6-minute rest, and then I use anywhere from 3 by 3-minute pieces to 8 by 3-minute pieces, then essentially I'm going anywhere from 3 by 3 with 6-minute rest to 8 by 3 minutes with 4-minute rest and everything in between. So 5 by 3 minutes with 5-minute rest, or 6 by 3 minutes with 4-minute rest, whatever it may be. The combinations and the adaptation of that workout for the entire gamut of skill levels within the sport is going to be, there's limitless, all right? So I can use that. So that's why I like that. But so when I'm doing that, and if I take an athlete and I say, we're gonna start out, we're doing 5 by 3 minute intervals, 3-minute rest, all right? Or not 3-minute rest, 5 by 3 minute intervals with 6-minute rest, all right? Because this is the first time we're doing 3-minute intervals with this particular varsity athlete in the season, all right? So we're taking it pretty easy. We've only got a couple weeks of UT2 training behind us and fitness development and conditioning behind us, so we don't want to go crazy. So we're going to do that. They're going to execute that fine. A good way to know that I planned that properly is that they're able to sustain their pace and improve upon their pace for each of those 3-minute intervals. So each 3-minute interval is faster than the last one whenever we are increasing stroke rate. And if we're maintaining stroke rate from one to the next, then they should be able to maintain their speed for that workout. And we're going to continue that. We're going to finish that session and say the next time we're doing a transport is 2 weeks later. Well, they've got 2 more weeks worth of conditioning and fitness development behind their belt. And so for that athlete, they probably don't need 6 minutes of rest anymore. They probably just need 5 minutes of rest to be able to get back into that next 3-minute piece and feel just as good as they did 2 weeks ago after 6 minutes, all right? And so that's how you know how much rest you should be taking, all right? So you should be taking the amount of rest that you need to be able to complete the workout as prescribed. And then you could also say, well, if I'm doing 5 by 3 minutes with 5-minute rest, and then, well, if I do 5 by 3 minutes and I'm taking 6 or 7-minute rest, maybe I can do 6 or 7 intervals instead. Well, then that's an issue too, because one, your volume of anaerobic training is determined by your volume of UT2 training, all right? So specifically for transport work in the general base building phase, the total sum of your aerobic, your UT2, is generally about 82-83% of your training minutes within that phase, and then your percentage for transport is somewhere around 3%. Well, if that's the case, then I know that I generally want to get about 15 minutes of transport in at a minimum for a workout to feel like I've got a good workout in. Then I need to do about 400 minutes of UT2 to justify 15 minutes of transport work. All right, and so that's how you determine your volume of transport. And you can always push it a little bit. You can always add an interval at the end here or there, or take an interval off if you paced maybe too aggressively and you're not able to sustain as you go through. And that's generally, you know, with my athletes, I always give them the opportunity. They can add intervals on at the end of the session if they're feeling good, so long as their last interval was faster than the one before. If they're feeling good and strong and they want to add one more and they feel like they can continue to improve and go a little faster on that last one, then I'll give them the opportunity to do that. And I'm not talking about faster as in going from a 143 average to a 140 average. I'm talking about going from like a 143 average to like a 142.5, 142.7 or something like that. All right, so small improvements. All right, but that same athlete, they should not be able to sit there and say, well, if I took 6 minutes rest instead of 5 minutes rest, then I should be able to complete another whole interval. If they're doing that, then they're doing it wrong, all right? And essentially for me, it's this feeling of, well, I don't want to be sitting around twiddling my thumbs waiting for my rest interval to end, all right? As soon as I feel like I'm good and I'm ready to go, I should go, and that's how I determine my rest interval. And kind of pursuant to that, and this is harder when you're in a team boat, but if you're training on the indoor rower, you're training in the single, then you shouldn't even feel like you need to set a prescribed rest duration, all right? I would definitely have an idea of what your rest duration is, but if at any time you feel like you need to take another 30 seconds, or if you feel like you're ready to go and you still got 30, 45 seconds left to go in your rest, then go, or take that extra time, all right? It's not that big a deal. Granted, with a less experienced athlete, you might not have the experience to make those good decisions, and you definitely got to be honest with yourself and make sure that you're not adding rest time just because you're trying to avoid the work, all right? Because the work is hard, and a lot of us don't like to feel pain like that, and so we'll kind of procrastinate it. All right, don't make the decision based on that, all right? So, you know, for me as a coach, coaching youth athletes, usually I'm not giving them a ton of flexibility in terms of taking extra rest if they need to, because they don't have that maturity to feel like it. But certainly if I have a veteran athlete on my varsity team and they're telling me, Travis, I think I need a little bit more rest for the next interval, then I'm gonna say, of course, you know, take the rest, reset your monitor when you're ready to go and do it. And so we got to get out of this mindset of using that rest as a way to kind of increase, or a way to kind of set what the workout is, all right? The workout is how many reps are you doing, how long are the reps, what is the stroke rate for each of the reps, and what is the effort that you're putting out for each of those reps, and what is the drag factor for each of those reps, all right? It is not how much rest, all right? How much rest is going to be determined by you to say, I can complete these intervals successfully at the pace that I'm supposed to be completing these intervals, and then later on in my training macro cycle, when I'm more fit and I've been doing this workout more and more often, when I feel I don't need the same amount of rest that I was taking before, I can decrease that rest and I can still have an effective workout. And I'm decreasing that rest because I don't want to sit around and twiddle my thumbs, all right? Not because I think it's gonna make me a second or two faster on my splits, all right? So that's it. Proud of myself, relatively quick on this one, 13.5 minutes on the timer so far. But if you guys got questions about this, shoot them down in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. But hopefully the takeaway is don't obsess over how long it's taking you to rest, all right? Just get in the work, get in the intervals, all right? And this does not translate to steady state. I've talked about this a lot in my videos before. I think that it should be everybody's goal to complete their oxygen utilization training, complete their steady state training, and one fixed interval and not be taking rest. I think those rests can be there for psychological reasons, all right? If you need that there just because you're having trouble maintaining focus. But if you're taking it for physical reasons, because your back is sore and you need to get up and stretch, that's an indication that you have other issues that you need to deal with, all right? If you can't complete a continuous volume of steady state without having issues with your back or whatever it may be, or your joints, your elbows, then you need to stop putting in that volume of steady state and you need to address those issues. And then once those issues are addressed, you can start completing that steady state again, all right? So don't break up your steady state for physical reasons. Psychological reasons are fine. For me, I can't sit down on an erg and row 40, 60 minutes at a time. You know, I've been training for sprint work, all right? My mind and my training is very much in kind of that sprint mentality where the volume is very low and the intensity is extremely high, all right? So I'm not mentally conditioned to sit down and do 40, 60 minutes of steady state. Ironically, I can go for a 60-minute run just fine, mainly because I'm running on trails and it's fun and it's engaging, they're going around. And I'm positive I could get in a boat, you know, in an 8 or a double or quad or something and do just fine rowing 60 minutes. But if I'm on the erg, rowing 60 minutes straight through would drive me crazy mentally right now. I just don't have that conditioning mentally and that focus. Just sit down and do that work, all right? So I would break up my steady state maybe into 10-minute sessions or 15-minute sessions, and then eventually if I got into it and I was trying to train for something like 1,000 meters or 2,000 meters again, and I got a month or 2, 3 months into that training, then mentally I would be conditioned again where I wouldn't have any problem sitting there and training for 60 minutes. But again, when I'm taking those breaks, it's not because my back hurts less or my elbows hurt less when I take breaks versus when I don't, all right? So don't do that. But when it comes to anaerobic training, those breaks are there because they help us accumulate volume. And a lot of people would have trouble training their transport just by doing a 90% or 95% effort 5K on a regular basis, all right? Which is another way to train transport, but it's not the way that rowing likes to use, all right? But that's it. That's the end. Yeah, hopefully this helped you guys. Give it a like if it did. Share it with any other athletes that you think could benefit from this information, or coaches, you know, same thing. And if you think I'm full of crap, then put it down below. I'm happy to engage in constructive criticism. As soon as people start attacking character, I just kind of check out on that. But if you guys got good kind of counterpoints and you want to kind of challenge this position, put it down below. I'm happy to engage because I find that that's what's kind of helps me kind of practice my brain muscles and really refine my understanding of training methodology. But that's it. This is Travis signing off. Thanks guys, and hope this helped. Bye.